Will we get a promised Neverland Brotherhood? A question that has been asked ever since Season 2 strayed from its source and disappointed fans of both anime and manga. Even Moist Critical, one of the biggest channels on YouTube, made a video about how bad Season 2 is. And while we can't answer this with 100% certainty, all signs are pointing to a grim conclusion that we won't be ever getting a full adaptation of the manga. In this video, I aim to discuss why that is, why fans of the series are angry, and as well the comparisons to FMA Brotherhood and Fruits Basket 2019 and how those anime got readapted in the first place and why this means TPN probably won't receive another one. With that out of the way, please be sure to subscribe as I have plenty of more TPN content among other series on this channel. Let's get into it. This is how TPN may never get a good adaptation. So to start off, if you enjoyed Season 2 of The Promised Neverland, this is not meant to be a video to attack you, same with the manga fans, but if you are a fan of Season 2, it will be worth you sticking around. This is simply because I won't be spoiling anything from the manga, and for the simple fact that you can learn a lot about TPN and some of your favorite anime or adaptations. So, let's begin. Many anime-only fans seem to think that this anime adaptation is bad, just because it's not the manga, and because of that, all of the criticisms are just from disgruntled manga fans who are mad that they haven't got the perfect one-to-one adaptation that they wanted. And while that is likely the case for a small percentage of fans, both just and unjust, the hard truth is that a lot of these criticisms are completely valid, but as well, it's agnostic to any side. This cannot be understated. What a majority of the manga readers wanted from an adaptation of TPN was a simple good adaptation that would fix the rushed ending of the manga. Which is ironic in a sense because Season 2 rushes everything after Gracefield by cutting out multiple arcs and important characters to get there. So in a sense, they fixed the rushed ending by making the whole series rushed. That's like the equivalent of fixing a hole in the ship by blowing up the ship, because at that point it's technically not a hole, it's just bits and pieces of a ship. Problem fixed. Hold on. I think I can speak firmly for a vocal and silent majority of TPN readers that they probably didn't mind the anime not being a one-to-one adaptation because, well, Season 1 wasn't a one-to-one adaptation, and most manga readers loved Season 1. It's also important to note that I am an anime-only viewer of TPN until Season 2, which I am only at chapter 51 of the manga at the time of this script being written. Now, this doesn't mean there are a vocal 15 people with alts online trying to make this a big deal on either side, but generally speaking, people just want a good anime. That's the way it's always been and probably will forever be unless something changes. And I hope that puts a stop to the confusion in that regard. And with that out of the way, why exactly are people so mad about this adaptation to begin with? What did they do? Well, to use metaphors and comparisons, if you've seen the comparison to Tokyo Ghoul Re's recent Horrid adaptation and are familiar with that, then that's sort of the same thing that's going on here. If you're not, but need a refresher, here's what went down. Tokyo Ghoul has a really popular and really beloved manga series, and pretty much ever since the anime was a thing, with each iteration, they would cut out and speed up more and more from the source materials. This culminated in the 2 seasons of Tokyo Ghoul Re, which aimed to adapt almost 200 chapters of a very complicated and sometimes slowly paced manga in about 24 episodes. Then something similar happened to another beloved manga that I myself am a fan of as well, Blade of the Immortal, which did the same thing of adapting around 250 or so chapters into a 24 episode anime series. Funnily enough though, 10 years before the recent adaptation of Blade of the Immortal, they did the same thing, but they gave it a 12 episode adaptation. How lovely. As you can see, fans of either series did not enjoy these adaptations, and around the world, they expressed their disappointment and anger publicly on their preferred social media platform of choice, like the biggest platform on the internet, Verve's comment section. On a side note, don't read Verve's comment section. They're full of spoilers. Essentially, Promised Neverland went to the school of adapting manga, but their professors were Tokyo Ghoul and Blade of the Immortal, and thus the adaptations literally skipped 2 arcs, removed several integral and important characters from the plot, plot, and just as an extra fuck you, decided to introduce one of the most beloved characters, Mother Isabella, who served as a surrogate mother, or literal mother in the case of one of our main characters, Ray, that's working for the demons to essentially raise these kids as cattle. Yeah, though she may be beautiful, Isabella is certainly ugly on the inside. I'm digressing, but as a fuck you, they decided to introduce her early on in the series, and she just doesn't show up for the majority of the rest of the series, like at all, until the end. Now, there are defenders and opposers of this change, but the reality is that this adaptation has suffered immensely due to the plethora of plot holes, odd tone shifts, really bad character logic, and just scenes or episodes that really mean nothing. For example, when the Gracefield kids arrive at their new shelter, they spend roughly 2 episodes in that shelter. By the next episode, they have to leave, and then by the next episode, everything they did in that shelter means nothing to the overall plot. So why did we even go there to begin with? To make matters even worse, Season 2 likely is aiming to finish the series in a whopping episode count of 11. That's right, they aim to finish a whole 181 chapter story in about 23 episodes. To put that into perspective, the Fullmetal Alchemist manga is only 116 chapters, and Brotherhood is 64 episodes. But it only gets worse. Promised Neverland Season 2 has a secret 12th episode. Could this save the adaptation? No, it's also not really a secret either. It's actually just a recap episode of all of the series events up to episode 5 of Season 2. That's right, even Season 1 is covered in 20 minutes. So if you're in the mood to speedrun an entire series to catch up to a shit adaptation, then honestly it sort of completes the effect this adaptation is going for. Needless to say, people were not happy about that recap episode. With everything else going on with this honestly awful adaptation, fans are now clamoring for a new adaptation of The Promised Neverland, something fans are dubbing The Promised Neverland Brotherhood. Though maybe a more apt name for it would be The Promised Neverland Orphanhood. The name? Yeah. It's famously based off of Fullmetal Alchemist's second adaptation, Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood. Why is there a second adaptation of Fullmetal Alchemist? Well, worry not. The original Fullmetal Alchemist is just about as beloved as the original, outside of the ending being lackluster for most people. So this is not one of those really bad examples we've mentioned before. But the difference between the two is that both adapt plenty of the source pretty accurately for a good portion of it, but Brotherhood's adaptation is the most original, and thus TPN fans like myself at this point wouldn't mind a Brotherhood-styled adaptation that picks up from Season 1 and ignores Season 2. As well, in recent years, another legendary and famous series, Fruits Basket, received its second adaptation, which I will be covering the final season weekly on this channel, so please subscribe, which aims to accurately adapt and retell through a more modern lens the events of the legendary shoujo series based off the hit late 90s manga. This is dubbed by me and my subscribers Fruits Basket Motherhood, and because of these two adaptations, many people are really wanting TPN to get that same treatment. But to understand why this likely won't happen, we have to look at how Fruits Basket and Fullmetal Alchemist got their most recent and most successful adaptations, so let's start with probably the most famous one, Brotherhood. Certainly no failure critically or commercially, Fullmetal Alchemist's original 51 episode adaptation is beloved, but since the manga source for the series wasn't completed, the producers from Aniplex, with permission from the original mangaka, decided to continue on with their original story, and with it ending 365 days after it first aired in October of 2004, it would be another 5 years until Brotherhood would hit, named to finish out the story of FMA by picking up where the original diverged from its source. Some notes about this is that Arakawa, the original creator, would even tell them the ending to the series so that the Brotherhood adaptation would match up to the manga's ending, which would publish just days before the anime's last episode. This is because Brotherhood is an adaptation to coincide with the manga finishing. Fruits Basket, on the other hand, had calls from the original author Natsuki Takaya for years to adapt the Fruits Basket manga to anime form in a more accurate version, as she was not happy with the original 2001 anime retelling of her story, which also was in the middle of publishing during the airing of. So if you're a fan of this new Fruits Basket anime, then think of none other than Takaya herself, and as well vocal fans. So taking all of that into account, will we get TPN Brotherhood? Well, the fact I'm even here today to even discuss this should be telling that no, we likely won't. Another disappointing fact is that the original author of the manga for TPN has some sort of role in this adaptation. And while that seems to be an extremely minor role, if the author wanted a good adaptation of TPN, he would have already fought for that, and this adaptation wouldn't be happening to begin with. So, how did it turn out this way? Well, this is commonly known as the Tokyo Ghoul effect in recent times, but it's essentially where an anime purposefully doesn't finish adapting or rushes an adaptation to meet the hype and popularity of the manga before or shortly after it ends. Think back to FMA Brotherhood. That's the whole reason that anime exists. TPN literally just finished publishing its final chapter last year. And as you probably have guessed, this adaptation is a literal cash grab before they move on to the next popular shonen jump. This has happened for decades and will continue to happen because of the fact that we anime and manga fans have been shown to support even the worst of adaptations. Remember earlier in the video where I discussed the sides where people will blindly pick either side claiming it to be good or bad? Yeah, that's all you need to know why this will still happen in the future. So, what can we fans of these series do to combat this? Well, nothing, honestly. At most, all you can do is continue to love TPN like you always have, support the manga to support the mangaka, or just not? It's up to you what you want to do because nothing is likely going to stop the TPNs and Tokyo Ghouls from not happening. I mean, look at the insane amount of adaptations Berserk has gotten. It's up to 3 at the time of this recording, none of which can be called a complete adaptation that does the manga justice. And there are rumors of Netflix wanting another adaptation. And you know how Netflix handles anime? Very poorly. And yeah, the reality is depressing, but we do have the manga to fall back on if you're curious about the original story of TPN and want to read it. That's it. If you enjoyed the video, then be sure to give this video a like, comment your thoughts on the debate between anime and manga, which is better, but as well be sure to subscribe, and I cover weekly anime like Attack on Titan, Promised Neverland, and so much more. I also have a Patreon and channel memberships if you want to show your support there. Anyways, thank you for watching. Stay safe out there, guys. Have a good one. Bye-bye.